Good evening, everyone. Sunday night, the 30th of May. Impromptu little jump on to have a chat about what's happening at the moment. We're up to episode 36 at the moment. Let's bring on our good mate, Cuz. How are we, Cuz? Good to see you, mate.
Hey, how are you, mate? Good to see you.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Not bad for a Sunday night.
Cold.
It is a little bit fresh, hence the beanie, brought to you by our great sponsors in Game Day Apparel.
Yeah, wonderful sponsors.
Tell me, Cuz, what's been on this weekend? What have you been up to?
Well, as you know, mate, we can't travel too far, can't do an awful lot socially, so spent a bit of time, myself and the good lady wife, out in the garden this afternoon.
Oh, you're a good man.
Front and back lawn, and Jody did a lot of weeding, so it was good. Look, and once you get into it, it goes pretty quick. So, yeah, so that was enjoyable, and the sun was out, so it was actually quite a nice day.
Very good. Very good. It was a beautiful day, actually. The whole weekend was pretty good. At work, Saturday, and got to enjoy a little bit of downtime on Sunday, which is good. So just had the immediate family, as you do, hence the lockdown rules, and the 2 hours of exercise. Didn't really get the 2 hours in, to be honest. It was overkill for me this time. We've got to build a bit of momentum up again there, that's for sure. Get out for our walks again.
Yeah, look, I saw two of our beloved walkers earlier yesterday, Saturday, and they'd just been on a long walk, so they're keen to catch up, Jane and Stuart Collinson, keen to catch up and walk a little bit more again. Hopefully not for as long as last time, though, mate.
Yes, absolutely. And a good friend of ours that's come on all the way from Canada. He's missed our good friend Kerry Goulet's show, The Gooch Live.
Gooch man.
Yeah, and he's learned his on, so he absolutely loves it. And it's a very, very bright early morning in Canada, so it's pretty fresh over there, just quietly.
I was going to say, we can't complain about the cold because their mornings and evenings would be a fair bit cooler than ours. What time over there, roughly? About 13 hours?
It's looking about 5 or 6 a.m., I think, 6 a.m. I reckon we're pretty early. So,
that's impressive.
Yeah, I hope to get Robert on one day and have a chat about his life story. It's an incredible one, mate. Truly inspirational. So I won't say too much without getting him on one day. So the great Lovey will join us eventually.
Punctuality is definitely his key.
Absolutely. Where do you want to start tonight, mate?
Oh, mate, as you know, my life's always an adventure. I provide many humorous anecdotes for yourself and Mr. Love and other friends of mine at times. So I'll give you a little adventure today because at the moment we haven't got a lawnmower. So I obviously rely on mates borrowing theirs. I had to hire one today. So I took myself down to the local BP in Monty just to hire the lawnmower. How much do you reckon that sent me back to hire the lawnmower?
I reckon there's probably no change out of 80 to 100 a day.
Well, no, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I think it was 60 I think she said for 4 hours, which is basically the day. But then I had to pay a deposit of 100.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Now, you love it, the whole pay the deposit system. When you pay the deposit, it comes out straight away. So when I finished doing the lawns, took it back sort of mid-afternoon, about 3 o'clock. And she said, oh, fantastic, thank you for that. Give us your card, we'll put the refund back on. And I said, will that go back on straight away? And she goes, oh, yeah, definitely. 8:10, mate. Still no sign of the money.
Well, pretty sure they invest that for the night, mate.
And then it was a classic. I had to go past there later on. I went down to the supermarket and I just called in just to put some on the tyres. And the lady, she was there. She came and she goes, oh, has that money gone? And I said, no. And she goes, oh, it can take up to 48 hours. I went, yeah, of course it can.
Yeah, that little disclaimer you didn't tell me at the start.
Well, it was pretty laid back, and I like you, mate. I always like support. I know BP is a global conglomeration, but I always like to support local people, and they've been around there for a while. The people who own that BP, but it was very funny, mate. Like she had, it was the greatest dodgy operation of all time. All I had to give her, apart from obviously the money, I showed her my license, and then she said, "Oh, can you just write your phone number on a bit of paper?" That was the that was the disclaimer. Nothing else.
Fair to say, I don't think there's too many people knocking off lawnmowers these days.
You wouldn't think so. You wouldn't think so.
I suppose the question I asked there is, did it start first go? That's always the dreaded.
Took a little while to warm it up, but once it started, I think it was a Honda mower. Yeah, very good.
Because obviously, shout out to Honda, one of our mower suppliers now. we might get a pitch. Absolutely.
Ching.
That's right.
Now, thank you for what we sent you earlier. You sent us a couple of stuff for gigs and whatever, which is fantastic. And mate, look, a big thank you to you, mate. I've really enjoyed catching up and going and seeing a lot of our guests who have been on the podcast, but also just catching up with some great friends, but some great musicians. And it was great to have, obviously, catching up for your birthday last Sunday. And the lovely came along as well and enjoyed it. And what a great day that was. But just how sad that we're back where we are. I just hope we as people do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a shout out back to Ash Naylor, who came on the show last week.
Yep.
He was fantastic. It'd been a long time coming trying to get Ash on the show, so it's fantastic to have him on. And a shout out to Wolfie and Davey Lane, and also Ash again, part of Marshmallow Overcoat that we went and saw last week. And sadly, yeah, we're back in lockdown for potentially 7 days, which we're day 3 now. I think we're up to. But the chances of it being 7 in a 14-day quarantine scenario, kind of hinting more that it might be 10 to 14 that we're looking at here.
Look, and I'm the same. Look, and I do admire Molino and those guys who are trying to give us as much information as they can, but I tend to think it might, as you said, be 10 to 14 because it's not so much because of the cases. It's more there's so many tier 1 sites are popping up now as they're discovering where people unwittingly, I'll say, have travelled when they've been unaware that they were infected and whatever.
Yeah, I think one of the points I discussed, and I've had interesting reaction from different people in different states about their opinion on this, but your thoughts on the whole lockdown scenario, given where we were at under 10 cases when it happened?
Look, living with a former member of the medical fraternity, Jodie's pretty strong on this sort of stuff, which is good, and she's got a pretty good insight into it. But as she said, I suppose that it seems very draconian to lock the whole state down. But if they didn't and it got out of hand, you've got to think worst case in a way. And as much as that takes away, in some ways, some civil liberties for sure, but I think I'd rather be sure than unsure. And I think I know there's still a degree of uncertainty, but I think there is. Look, we got away with it last time for 135 days or whatever it was. And as much as we don't want that again, we found a way to come out of it. I think these little short ones that we may experience now in the next week or so, with the vaccine, with people now getting tested, look at the rates of testing on as quickly as, say, Friday when they announced they're going to go on lockdown. If this is the wake up that people get, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, look, you can always open early, which is obviously what happened in Adelaide and also happened in Perth. So sadly, it doesn't seem to happen in Victoria that way, and we tend to go longer. I think we're well over the 150-day mark of total lockdown days, and it's looking like we're gonna top it again for probably potentially at least 7 to 10, I reckon. But look, we've all done it before, and look, I don't really think this one was the answer. They did say we'd kind of really would avoid it if possible this time, but Dan steps aside. In comes Mr. Molino, and he's the first one to lock us down. And obviously it wasn't his call, but it's not ideal, is it? Absolutely. I mean, businesses are really hurting. let's forget musicians for 2 seconds, who obviously a lot of our show revolves around, but hospitality. A lot of places have decided just to lock the doors now for 7 days instead of trying to pull the takeaway thing again. And you can't blame them, to be honest. They would have had their week's worth of food ready to go. And, sadly, it's not even going to be a takeaway. It's going to be a spoiled job, I think.
I just hope, and I mean hope, from a federal and a state point of view, that those businesses, whether it be travel, whether it be hospitality, whatever it might be, that they are looked after, because regardless of whether we have a 7-day, 10-day, whatever, a lot of them, as we know from exposure we've had talking to people on the show from the musician or the musical industry and entertainment industry, obviously we also know people who own their own businesses and whatever, tradies and whatever. A lot of people are taking big hits, and they need to be looked after, because it's going to take a while for the whole economy to come back in. So I think that's where we've got to just suck it up a little bit. And I'm a bit the same. I don't think, do we need to go on a total lockdown? No, but if you speak to, from a world stage, what has happened here in Victoria, we've been, as you said, well over 150 days of lockdown. That's not ideal, but we're still in a pretty good position because of it, I think. And if you speak to other people around the world and health organisations, it's been a pretty good model. When you're living it, you're thinking, shit, not again. How are we going to cope? But as I said to one of our colleagues at work the other day, life deals you lemons. As much as it's a bitter taste, it's got to make lemonade for a little bit. And that's part of how you deal with adversity. And I know that doesn't make it easy for people, but guess what? You just got to suck it up.
Yeah, you sure do. I think you're right. Once again, we just got to look at the positives on this one. We're all got to support each other. Do everyone a favour and just ring a couple of mates and see who is sitting at home and see who needs a chat. I'm very lucky that I've got family at home and friends that I can call on. A lot of people don't have that. So I spoke to a guy today who's pretty much, down in the dumps because he'd been through this situation plenty of times, and this time he's finding it a little bit harder, even though that he thinks it's only going to be a week. So, there's no doubt. And thank God for sport and the AFL and NRL being able to, at the moment, get that round done. Let's just see what happens with the rounds to come, I guess.
And I think, as you said, mate, the biggest thing too, as we've known, look, the reason we started doing this podcast 36 odd episodes ago, whenever it was to help people in whatever way, shape or form to get through the struggles of COVID and the isolation that a lot of people have and still suffer through it. The good thing is it's 2021. We live in a world where we've all got mobile phones, devices where we can reach out to people, send a Skype message, send something, g'day, I'm struggling. It's amazing when in this world when you think you've got no support, when you actually ask for help. But as you know, we're often ashamed to ask for help as people. But if you speak to all the guests we've had on, doesn't matter what their background is, when you ask for help, the help comes. I suppose that's the biggest thing, as you said. And I think of the help that I speak about you, Lovey, obviously Jane and Stuart you mentioned before, doing walks and that sort of stuff. It's amazing how doing that, you go for a 2-hour walk, well, you filled up 2 hours of your time. Then you do tackle your next thing.
So let's move on to a bit of positive news in sport this week. Obviously, the AFL got underway, and it was Indigenous round, obviously, and we kick off with some incredible Indigenous jerseys inspired once again. They seem to just go above and beyond every year, and there's some fantastic featured jerseys here, and we'll talk a little bit more in relation to whose jersey later, but one of the weirdest things I saw for the week, correct me if I'm wrong, was the Demons obviously played the Bulldogs Friday night. And it was all good. They were out there. They played the whole game with each other. They're all being tested that week. And then we've got to go through this indoor with wearing masks, singing the team song at the end.
Now, is that weird?
one of the most ludicrous things you'll ever see. I mean, what more can they do? But all tests negative. I don't understand what the issue would be if they'd gone and played the whole game together. The second they walked indoors into the indoor environment, the rules are firmly stating that you've got to wear masks. So
I thought they were taking them. I actually thought it was a bit of a piss take. I thought they were taking the mickey a bit because that's what it looked like. Yeah, as soon as they stepped in, I went, it's like, it reminded me of grand final day or in a horse race when the horse wins the race and the sponsor comes out of nowhere with a cap, whether it's Tui's or whatever. Yeah. That's what it was like. It was like the sponsor was handing out the mask. I thought, they're surely taking the P155 because they've run around together for 2 hours.
No, sadly not. That's the rule, mate. That's the rule. But interestingly enough, obviously that was the rule in Melbourne. Once we moved into state, there was no issue after that. So it was the only game in Melbourne. And it's looking like being no games in Melbourne for this next upcoming week. But let's touch on that one shortly. So we move to the results. Let's quickly whip through these, mate. The Demons got it done against the Bulldogs in a close match, and I think it was a little flattering in the end for the Demons, but 8-11 to 13-9. Your thoughts? What did you see? Did you watch any of the game?
Yeah, mate, I watched a fair bit of footy this week on free-to-air and KO and whatever. Mate, I know it's cliche, but they are looking the real deal. Like I rated the doggies, and in my tipping, in the family tipping we got going on in our house, I tipped the doggies with confidence. But look, Melbourne were very impressive.
Yeah, look, obviously being a Mad Demon supporter, I'm pretty excited, but definitely, obviously, keep the lid on. But it was more a case of enjoying the ride, which is another good mate of mine said to me, just sit back and enjoy it, mate. Don't get ahead of yourself. Which
Dave Cosmo, by any chance?
Well, I am a Demon supporter. There's no point getting ahead of yourself. But, yeah, look, I think it's been a great result so far. Would anyone have told me that we'd won 10 games out of, we're up to, what are we up to, round 11?
Yeah.
Incredible effort. I wasn't really expecting to win 10 for the year. So it's going to be a really interesting play on how we go for the rest of the season. But I don't really think anyone really tipped the doggies to be doing so well either. They thought they'd be coming back, but I didn't think they'd be in the top couple.
Nah, but as you know me pretty well, mate, I'm a bit of a glass half full sort of person. It can often just take a couple of little tweaks to go from, oh God, we're rebuilding, we're struggling, we're going to struggle to win games, to the other position. Like you look at, obviously, team close to my heart, the Bombers. Round 4, we played Port Adelaide over there. They beat us by 10 goals. Draper went down. Dylan Shield went down. Jod Core went down. Everyone goes, see you, Bombers. The arse will drop out of you. The 3 draft picks all came in and played. Now we're percentage out of the 8. Now, I'm not saying we're going to make the 8. I'm not getting ahead of ourselves. But just the belief in the group. Melbourne have clearly got that now. The Doggies have got that. And that said, you look at North, who are down the bottom, Hawthorn, Collingwood. I don't think the gap's that wide anymore.
Yep,
I think
definitely
with size, drafting good players and whatever.
Let's just move to the bottom 8 of the ladder for a second. Yep. This could have easily been, 4 or 5 of these teams could have easily been in the 8 originally. And forecasted to be. So it's going to be really interesting to see some of these games pan out in the next few weeks. Collingwood, Adelaide, pretty critical as far as what happens with Adelaide coming forward. Collingwood, obviously on the knife's edge now with Buckley. What's going to happen there? That's another great story, and it has been for 3 or 4 weeks. So I really think Buckley's pretty safe, to be perfectly honest. Your thoughts on Buckley?
Look at that game yesterday, and there's people say, mate, as the media like to say all the time, whether it's print, whether it's radio, whatever it is, Collingwood what a terrible game of footy. A lot of people have Geelong in their top, if not top 2, top 4. Collingwood are, a game off the bottom. They got within 10 points. Now, I know they didn't score for them.
I mean, that was a terrible scam. terrible spectacle to watch, obviously, and even listen to be fair. The commentators
Yeah.
are really battling with the game. But at the end of the day, a side that's travelling ordinary can drag a really top team down.
Oh, mate, and I'm a firm believer in that. And that's how I believe that the comp's closer than what you think. Like, if someone said to you, in all honesty, you said before, you got $1,000, Melbourne are going to be on top with the Doggies second, and they've lost 3 games between them, you wouldn't have put bad money on that. If I'd have said to you, Essendon's going to Perth, West Coast haven't lost a game there this year, back the Bombers, you'd laugh at me.
Yep.
But
yeah,
they
definitely.
gave them a start and ran over them.
Yep.
And in all honesty, probably go in, not to be smart, I reckon they go in against Richmond this week as possibly favourites.
Yep. Well, we'll come to that one in a second.
Yeah.
But you've got Brisbane Lions demolished the Giants. No real surprise there, but I thought the Giants had put up a little bit more of a shot.
I think their injuries to key blokes are starting to take a bit of a toll for the Giants.
Sure. Yep.
And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you look at Richmond, they are the form side and have been for the last 3 or 4 years. But you get injuries to key players and then you keep getting them, you're going to suffer. It doesn't matter how good your seconds team is, you're going to suffer.
Yep.
And I think that's what's brought the Tides back to the field a bit. If you look at the sides around them now, that's the thing. That's where Melbourne, the Doggies, even Sydney, those Geelong, they've put credits in the bank early. Like, you being 10-1, even if you have a drop-off for 3 or 4 games, you're not going to be too far away. You'll drop back to the middle of the 8, but you're not going to drop down too far.
Yep. Yeah.
And that said, though,
the biggest thing, it's not just wins, right? It's percentage as well. And if you can sit pretty comfortable, it's been a long time since Melbourne's had a good percentage above 100, and now they're sitting at 135. So you've got a little bit of 138 there. So you've got a little bit of room to move. Obviously, Bulldogs still being the benchmark there, sitting at 150. But that, if you're above sort of 110 to 120, that's a pretty good bracket to be in.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Talking about percentages, like the good percentage you've got, that's the thing with Essendon. Apart from the Port game, they taught us a new one. Our percentage is 104. So if you look at us compared to the next, like, where are we? 106, sorry. We're obviously on the same points as Freo, but they are 94.4.
Yep.
So we win next week. Obviously, we overtake Richmond, and then you cement yourself in the 8. So the top side obviously is Melbourne. You have won 10, but if you take down to say Port, who have won 7, it's pretty close from about 5th to about 10th or 12th.
Yeah, very much so.
And that's why I think the evenness. Like, if you look at Carlton, as frustrating as it might be to the supporters, Carlton, Gold Coast, even the Crows to a lesser extent as well, if they get a bit of a run on and win 3 or 4 games on the trot, they're right back in contention for the 8.
Yeah, look, Carlton really had their opportunity today against the Swans, to be honest, and they really had it for 3 quarters. They were right in it. But a good team will really put the hammer down when they really need to. And look, Swannies are coming, mate. They're pretty good team, Sydney. They got a lot of young kids playing really well, and that's what you get though with the Swans. You get them in bursts, and you don't necessarily get them all for 4 quarters. So it's going to be interesting because that result there. Sorry, I've skipped forward. That result from that one is going to be interesting. I mean, they really didn't blow them away, but 22 points in the last quarter when a super tight game.
But I'll be a bit harsh. I reckon in the last quarter they were a bit insipid, Carlton, I thought. Like, to keep them in check with the 8. Like, I'm not saying they still can't make it now, but to keep them in check with the 8, they blew a big opportunity today. Because, as you said, for the majority of the game, and I watched a fair bit of it because we'd finished the guarding by that sort of stage, they were in control for 2/3 of that game. But they had probably moments, Sydney, where, as you said, 5 minutes in about the second, probably 5 minutes in the third, early in the fourth, where Carlton could never touch the footy.
Yeah, it goes to show you, though, a couple of goals in that start of the last quarter, they really hurt. They just take the wind out of the sails. They take all the momentum, and then it is a momentum game to try and just get it back. It's a tough gig.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing I take out of the new way footy's played in terms of the new rules and the adaptation of those new rules and the effect that has on the game. Is you look at, say, the West Coast Essendon game the other night. Now, it's a fortress Optus Stadium for interstate sides, like Richmond at the G, but momentum in modern football is an amazing thing. And the belief when you kick a couple, well, hang on a minute, we kick a couple more.
Now, I didn't see that game, Cuz. So how far back were they?
29 points down. Look, I don't know. Look, I'll be honest. They lost Kelly early in the first quarter.
Yep.
But 10-minute mark of the third quarter, they were 29 points in front, West Coast. Over there on not a wet night, but it had been raining. Now, Oscar Allen didn't get subbed out, so he subbed out Kelly, but he went off as well. And that's got to definitely hinder their ability to be firing on all cylinders. But, mate, for a young group to go over there, that's a bit. That's as an Essendon supporter, and I'll hand on heart. That's a defining game for them as a young group.
Yeah, absolutely. I think not only is it their best win for the year, I think it's the best comeback for the year for sure. And a good mate of ours, Dave, who you've proudly wore one of his hats, mate. He's obviously super keen to talk about the Dons.
He loves the Bombers.
A good Bombers man, and there's no doubt Dave will be sitting back thinking, yeah, that was one that we should have won. Now, you did win it, and you got it done. So you never know when you go over there. I don't believe it's as big an advantage as a game. If you can stay with West Coast, the difference was you were 5 goals down. That's a pretty big margin to turn around.
Yeah.
And you've got to get going. Once you get going, because 1 or 2 more goals, that's it. The game's done for them.
Oh, for sure. But I think not that you're as young as us, but I think that's why Melbourne are doing so well. The Doggies as well. Yes, the Doggies in Melbourne have got some experienced players, but you've got a lot of players as of Essendon now in that, what I call that 40 to 80 game bracket, who are experienced enough now. Hang on, we're good enough to do this. Why can't we do this? Yes, they're playing it in their home ground, but I go back to what Ross Lyon used to say, any port, any storm. And that's how you got to be, especially with what might happen in the next 10, 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever.
Yep. And a shout out to Dave in relation to the EJ isolation sessions. Dave, we've got a week, so who knows? You could pull one off, another EJ isolation session, maybe a best of at least, to get back out there, out for the fans of the EJs, mate.
Just a quick little one would be lovely.
It would be. So I suppose we'll just touch on the game coming up, the Dreamtime game that's now been moved to Perth. I think that was a smart call, to be honest. Get it away from Melbourne. As disappointing as that'll be, it'll be an absolute spectacle, no doubt, over there. And the great part is Essendon end up being the home team this week.
Well, the interesting thing about it is having a week there, and I'm not sure what the weather's going to be like in Perth during the weekend, next weekend. But, and I don't say this in a cocky way, but I think we're going favourites playing. It's like a horse who sees a track for the second time, as opposed to a horse who haven't seen something before, playing a golf course you haven't played before.
Yep.
I know Richmond have played there before, but we've had a week there. We've been acclimatised. Richmond will come over some stage this week. But, look, I think they had a good win today, or got the job done today, Richmond. But I think, and that's the joy when you become as good as what they have become. You become the hunted, and now I think, I'm not saying sides have worked them out, and I'm not saying they're going to fall away, but sides are beginning to work out some of their things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting with Richmond because there's no real set plan. That whole get it in crazy is a great, always been one that's really hard to coach against. So we'll be really looking forward to seeing the Tigers coming up, and just to see where's their next one. Obviously, Bombers next, but it'll be interesting to see who they've got next. So their win-loss. So that's it just keeps them in the mix, and that's all you need to do at the moment. I mean, the teams that have got the run on, Geelong's got a good run on now. Brisbane's just playing incredible footy. What are they at 5 wins in a row there? Fantastic game coming up this week. Demons versus the Lions. That will be a massive test for Melbourne, and I'm pretty positive that we'll go all right. But you know what? Once again, I just hope we don't have the mindset that it's okay to drop another one. They just need to really take it test by test now. We've become the hunted, so to speak, now. And it'll be interesting to see what sort of they put up against now.
Look, but I think I think it was Chad Lever, or might have been Stephen Maidman interviewed after the game on Friday night. It was one of them. And he said, or it might have been the next day listening to the radio when I went down the street or something. And the point they made was that they harshly judged, no, it was actually Harms. He was talking about how they really had an honest sit-down talk over the pre-season about the disappointment as a group they felt from last year, and that one of their steely resolves in the pre-season of this year and last year was, let's give ourselves an opportunity to give ourselves every opportunity, if that makes sense. So let's do what we need to do. So, yes, barring injury and whatever, let's do – and look, every challenge they've come up against this year, they've answered. So, look, I think, I'm not trying to moz them, I think they've got to be, if not flag favourites, very close to it.
Yeah, look, it's obviously easy to say that at this time of year. But look, they've got a couple of tricky games coming up. Obviously, Brisbane up there is going to be tough. I think that's going to be in Sydney, if I'm not mistaken. Then the big one's going to be against Collingwood. Now, always been arch enemies, Collingwood. It's a massive one, Queen's birthday, the weekend. And hopefully they can get crowds back again in Melbourne, but obviously no certainty there. Bombers get a week off that week. So do Richmond. So, you know, both coming back after the flight or game in WA. So, look, I just hope it's going to be a good one. It's definitely one that we want.
Oh, it's a great game, and hopefully we want the crowds back, because you know what a great day it is, the Queen's birthday game for the MND and the Beanies for supporting MND, whatever, and what a great cause that is, and what a wonderful person Neil Danaher is.
Absolutely, it's been incredible, and good to see Dave saying that these are the real deal, because it's been a long time since people have had that vision and that thought process. I'm sure even the doubters, being Demon supporters, know it all too well that the wheels can fall off pretty quickly.
Great man should come on and join us if he's doing nothing else, Dave.
Dave's I'm sure got his pajamas on right now. He's old school 50s pajamas, and he's kicking back. So good to see
Dave in the sort of like the Hugh Hefner gown get up.
Yeah, I think he's a smoking jacket for sure.
With a smoking jacket.
Yeah. Let's bring on Super Late, and it'll be known as Late Lovey now. How are you, mate?
Any danger. You call the time. Adelaide time, mate.
Mate, I'm out saving the world. That's all.
In all honesty, mate, just give me your family's thoughts on the facial hair. What are their thoughts on it, mate?
They think it sucks. That's why I've got it.
I love it.
All the more reason for you to just keep growing it, I'd say.
Mate, I reckon I'm going to grow it out bigger than Papa Smurf, mate. Trust me.
I'd love to see that, Lovey. And I reckon, Cuz, you should start pulling the mullet, mate. The mullet or the mutton chops, mate. You take your pick. We'll give you two choices. But Lovey, I reckon that's looking sharp. That's pretty good in a week.
Yeah, mate. It's so our footy club was meant to have Dennis Lilly. It looks like Dennis Lilly. Our footy club was meant to have a 70s function last night, and obviously because of things you guys have probably already discussed, it didn't occur. But I've actually said, well, I'll keep growing this until the 70s function is on.
Oh, the boys are going to delay it now. They've got to run it later in the year. And Lovey's going to keep on.
Can you get a bit of the old
why don't we just run it next year? So,
what about the guy off the I think it's the Powerboy ad, mate, with his mustache. Can you get little curls going out?
I'm gonna have the school books. I'm gonna have the school books hanging off it by the end of the month. Don't worry, it'll be just floating around.
When I went to bed last night, after watching the footy, there was some 70s movie came on, and talking about the mutton chops. There's a bloke came on there, just had the classic thick mutton chops down about here, but nothing else, just the big thick.
Yeah, they're pretty special if you can grow them. Berkey's got them going at the moment. He's got the big grey ones going, the silver fox. It's pretty sharp.
This shit's aligning. Hang on.
That's all right. That's
good, mate.
Is that all right there?
Yep, perfect.
I just look like I should go out and murder someone.
Can't be worse than Cuz's dressing gown hanging on the back door, mate. So it's all good.
That's Shaddy's dressing gown, mate. I'll pass it on that you're not happy with it, though.
Mate, that's even worse. The fact you've got your wife's dressing gown on a national broadcast as your background.
Just to let you know, Lovey, international now. We've got a good friend of ours, Robert, jumping on, and he's you've inspired him to grow the beard, mate. So Robert's going to jump on and start getting the beard going for the family, and we might head all the way into November with it. So you start early, mate.
Do it,
I was going to say,
everything to gain, nothing to lose.
Are you going to go full beard, mate, or just leave that little bit of afterthought down here?
No, I'm gonna. Shannon Knowles sort of fell off the face of the earth over the last 5-6 years. So
what has happened with the great man Shannon?
Got to have the flavour saver somewhere. I'll keep it going. Don't worry, that's all right.
That's good.
Maybe it could be renamed the Knowlesy now.
No. No, call it the love tickle. That'll do. But anyway, that's all right. What's
now, talking footy? Has Jack Wewell got the mark of the year sewn up?
No. It was a great mark, but no chance.
Great mark.
Just before you do, let's have a look at it.
Turn to one of your superstars, one of your leaders, and as you said, running back with the flight, but also got a ride on the shoulders of Chase Jones, I think. He's even Castagna underneath him. That is unbelievable. As good as you'll see, especially the time of the game, the state of the game, just when they needed him.
It's going to be hard to beat.
Fuck. I know you're a tough marker, but that would be hard to beat.
Guess what? Nick Rewalt's one didn't even win mark of the year that year either.
Yeah, it didn't.
Yeah, true.
It didn't.
True. And that's probably what might cost it, to be honest. Bit of history.
Shea Bolton's one, wasn't it?
Shea Bolton's was good, yeah. Shea Bolton's one was so good. Not the mark was fantastic, but his recovery was so seamless.
Well,
I landed on 2 feet like nothing happened.
With all due respect, Glenn, I don't reckon you would have stood on anyone's back with your feet before like that. So,
as much as it may surprise you, mate. As much as it may surprise you both, that was probably you'll as hasn't seen it, but you've seen it kicking Allen. I was actually quite a good grab back on the day.
Yeah, well,
something I could do.
Mate, you got about 2 inches off the ground, not.
I can't now.
And Dave's chiming in, thinks he's taken the live stream set design to a new level in your house, cuz.
Get on board. Get on board with your dressing gown, mate. Get on board and show us your face, Cosmo.
And he's a big rap that Jack's mark. It's incredible courage. It's scary, those kind of marks that if they work, they're great. And if they don't come off, you're going to be absolutely wiped out. So incredible courage and a pivotal part in the game too.
It's an excellent mark. It's clearly marked. It's easily the best mark this week. But it just won't win mark of the year because traditionally it just doesn't, that sort of thing.
Yep. Well, let's move from mark of the week.
John O'Brien's still the
absolutely.
Brown's mark's still the best I've seen in 20 years.
How good was that?
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Talk about courage. We might dig that. We might do a bit of a marks of the year or marks that we love over the next few weeks to get us out of lockdown. But let's talk about this great goal from Indigenous superstar Eddie Betts.
The pocket.
Pinternet provides the target. His Betts in the pocket, holds it one-handed, bending through for a goal. That's it. That's what we wanted, Linger. The Doug Nicholls rounders. Just enjoy this. I mean, he made this look like he's having a kick in the park. And his one hand, just a bit of weight of service there, Jace. Silver service. There you go. And they'll kick it from the boundary.
Poor Harry Cunningham did everything right there too. He corralled him beautifully. He just looked at him to say, great, thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, you can push Eddie boundary side, but he loves it there. That's exactly where he wants it to be. And just a little one-hander, had it perfectly balanced on the hand and delivered the goods. Beautiful to see in Doug Nicholls' round, that's for sure. And he wasn't the only Indigenous superstar out there. It was Buddy was pretty special today if you caught any of that game. But he might be in a little bit of trouble, Buddy. That classic run at the man with the elbow up a little bit. No, I think you just never know. Well, he might get let off because of an Indigenous run. Maybe, hopefully that's...
I should call you Tom Brown, honestly.
No, but I know it's harsh, and I know what you think, Lovey, but if the bloke from Gold Coast I know he got off eventually, but if he got cited for tackling a bloke, the perfect tackle, they're going to have to look at that Buddy thing because of what they want to look at.
I'll tell you why, because they've been... No, they don't. I'll tell you why. Because these dopey idiots have been looking at the outcome for the last 3 years. Well, what was the outcome? Yeah. Newman got straight back up. There was no issue.
Yeah.
So Buddy won't get looked at. He should not get looked at if that's the case.
I hope not. I
agree. He shouldn't, but I think they might. What were your thoughts about the weekend's games, Al?
Tell us a little bit about your Bombers, mate. What did you think at three-quarter time with the Bombers done?
Yeah, I was harder than a diamond in a snowstorm last night. It was brilliant. I just couldn't.
Hang on, guys, harder than a diamond in a snowstorm. Okay, that's pretty hard, but go on.
Yeah, mate, trust me. I was chubbing. It was chub time. But that's. You know what? That's the best I've seen Essendon play since the last time they beat the Eagles over there back when Joe was playing and he was under all that heavy spotlight.
And they'd boot him every time he went into the footy.
Yep, they'd boot him. We ended up winning by 4 points that night when we were not meant to get within Cooey. Last night was pretty similar. Young blokes just really stepping up. The fact that we're in the 8 today, obviously before Richmond won, but it says that we're going in the right direction. I still don't think we'll play finals, but I reckon, I do think that we're playing probably 4 to 5 wins better than I actually thought we would. You know, you probably recall at the start of the year, I thought at best we'll get 5, 6 wins. We might even push 9, 10. So that'd be a fantastic season for us.
I think it's incredibly even.
Night, really good.
Incredibly even, Al. Those still bottom teams can still do some damage for sure. I think it's going to be pretty even in the next month or so. And obviously we talked about a little bit just before you came on, but home ground advantage now for Essendon over there. Been there a week. They get the ease into the week. It'll be a great one. I cannot wait to see them.
Probably the worst thing probably the best thing that happened to Richmond today was they beat Adelaide in the end. If Adelaide beat them, Richmond on the rebound, I wouldn't have liked. I mean, they're starting to get a couple of players back. They're starting to get a couple of players back, Richmond, and people wrote them off. They'll still finish top 6 at worst by the end of the year. They'll be finishing top 6, top 4, if anything else.
Looks like I found another young bloke today. Like I saw a little bit of the Richmond Adelaide game on KO. Dawkins something or Riley somebody, tall forward, kicked 3 or 4 for them today.
So I don't know. I think your dressing gown was covering up your Wi-Fi connection, I think, Cuz.
You are an idiot. Yeah, so I think he's played a fair bit of twos footy this year. I think he's maybe his first or second game, but kicked 4. So I found another avenue to goal because I think Lynch is going to be out for 6 to 8, I think, with a bit of a knee issue, which will hurt them a little bit.
They'll cover that.
Yeah.
They'll cover that.
What about your favourite Indigenous jersey for this round? Cuz, let's start with you.
Well, my favourite one's actually not in that picture. I actually like the Sydney one.
Yeah, right.
With the black swan on it, the one they wore today.
This one. Yeah, I thought it was a ripper. Looked great. Don't like the big patch on the back, to be honest. Big red patch. Not a huge fan. Something could have happened there, but other than that, it is good. Don't know what's happened at GWS.
The worst one again was it's kind of hard to make Hawthorn last year.
Hawthorn? Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty average. I was just going to say, I think Hawthorn's, it's hard to make Pooh attractive at any time, isn't it? So I still think, I actually reckon, as bad as they're going, I reckon North Melbourne's one looked pretty sharp too. I like the look of North Melbourne's one.
Yeah, that's not too bad, is it? We've seen the Richmond, the GWS, and the Carlton one a fair bit this week, haven't we, Az?
We have.
The last couple of weeks.
We have. And to be honest, I think they're three. I quite like the GWS one, even though it's a repeat from the year before. But Carlton, obviously, I think is a great design, and a good friend of ours, Laura Thompson, did that jersey. And good to see another mate of ours, Dixon Patton, who we've had on the show, did 2 jerseys there. He was involved in 2 jerseys, the Collingwood one and also the Essendon one. So it's great to have his work featured along this journey. And we move to some NRL jerseys while we're talking about the Indigenous program. Have you had a look at any of those, Al? And did you find one that you liked?
I always enjoyed my St. George boys. They went all out. They went all out for their jersey. That was pretty cool.
That's good, isn't it?
Lots and lots of colour. Yeah.
Yeah, plenty happening.
What I like about it, that's what I like about the Indigenous jumper is that the ones that move away from their traditional jumper the most, I really like, because they're really embracing something that's completely different to what's the norm. And, you don't necessarily have to still identify with your club's colours even. I mean, the St. George one was good. That's why I like the North Melbourne one. It's sort of still identified, but the whole jumper looked completely different to what they typically wear.
Yeah.
And it tells the whole story, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, the Broncos one was brilliant. I mean, I watched the Storm Broncos the other night. The Broncos one, awesome. Look at that. That's
good, isn't it?
That's just amazing. I really like that one.
Looks great.
Yeah, I think both codes do it really well. Yep,
they
Storm's
do.
One was good.
Yep,
That could have said Red Centre then, not Red Z. But anyway,
not a massive fan of this one, but does the job. It's a bit too traditional. For me,
I reckon that one's looked more for the sponsors than the Indigenous. I would have thought.
South the Rabbitohs something a little bit different, but I think you're right. I think Brisbane takes a cake, to be honest, for this year.
It's a good one.
Newcastle wasn't too bad. Just to whip through a couple. Gold Coast, that wasn't bad.
Geez, that looks like a party.
Yeah, it does. Big party shirt. Canberra, I really liked Canberra's. I thought it was good. Well done. Parramatta was another one that I didn't think looked too bad. A little bit different, a little bit more extra colour. But, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with in the next few years, because obviously the gloss will never go off the round. I think we should keep this round forever. But it's interesting when you talk about clashes, and obviously I don't believe Melbourne and Western Bulldogs, that one clashed at all. I don't really see what the issue was, and they should have been able to wear it. So, disappointingly, they didn't, and the Bombers didn't either. And obviously, Bombers and Richmond, obviously leading into Dreamtime. I think Dreamtime should still be the game that kicks off the Indigenous round from a jersey point of view, and I think that's the way it should be every year. And we get to wear them into the next coming weeks after that. But we get to see Melbourne's jersey turn up next week. Sadly, it won't be in Darwin or NT where it was going to be, and it's going to be in Sydney.
But Jody asked that question as well, and I haven't heard an official explanation. So the Melbourne and the Doggies were supposed to be a clash. So why did Essendon wear theirs? Because And why is Doug Nichols over 2 weeks as opposed to 1 round? That's the thing. Is it because of the bye?
I couldn't tell you. I really don't understand it, to be honest. Look, I think it's kind of been targeted a little bit more as a clash jersey as well now.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming back, Al. That's better. Now you got the lighting.
Oh, hang on, mate.
It's looking good.
Jeez, that's looking.
I'm just trying to
in the kitchen now, mate.
You guys feel better about your Wi-Fi. That's all. So thought I'd jump into my own different room.
Thought you were going to cook us up a little late night dinner snack.
I'm impressed, mate. You've ditched the red wine anyway.
Now that I'm on camera, look out.
Exactly.
It's still going to be better than a dressing gown in the background. So but
well, I thought I'd change it up from the footy jumpers, mate. As told me to change it up.
I couldn't understand the whole jumper clash thing. If you look at it, actually, one team's got completely predominant blue, one's predominantly red. So I don't understand that. And you know what? Here's the thing for me with that whole clash thing. If you the AFL are asking clubs to come up with a jumper based upon an Indigenous design that can't be touched and shouldn't be touched, don't you then go and touch it and say, oh, by the way, because we think there's a jumper clash that you're going to have to redo it anyway. Like, the jumpers are the jumpers. Let them play them.
Yeah, correct.
It defeats the purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely defied logic, this one. I'm just going to bring it up, which I've got it here now.
Well, who's going to go out to the football shops and buy the away clash Indigenous strip? No one.
Tell me how this clashes.
It doesn't. Without trying to sound like a smart aleck, there's as you said, Lovey, one's predominantly red, and even the blue, the background of Melbourne's, it's a completely different blue to the doggies' blue.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's still very much dark versus light, and I don't understand what the issue is. So disappointing. And I think it would have been nice if the Bulldogs had have debuted their man, which I'm pretty sure they didn't, if I'm correct. Yep. He hasn't played a game yet.
No, he hasn't earned it. I like the way
true. I also don't believe in just putting him in for the sake of it, but I think it would have been a nice gesture to get him there. They say he's pretty close and pretty much ready, so that would have been a good token. I want to touch on this one too, Lovey. I know you're a big AFLW fan. The thoughts of Taylor Harris now pricing herself out of the market, so to speak. Or has she? That's the question. What are your thoughts?
Can we bring Jack into this conversation? Jack's a big fan. Jack still can't believe she's got a statue.
Wow, she's a bit better than Jack.
Last I checked, cuz Aaron asked me the question too. So just be really polite, please.
Sorry, Alan.
Yeah, you look like Dickie Knee. Actually, all we can see is your hat, by the way. So
yes, Mr. Dummers.
I don't know if she was trying to pioneer a change and further movement through her contract negotiation. I think she's well out of the current marketplace ballpark. I think I encourage anyone to try and see what their market value is worth and test it out in any environment, in any industry. You do it all the time,
sure.
100%. I just don't think that the league is clearly ready for that sort of push. Well, you think back to the late 80s and early 90s, and guys are still almost working part-time and earning, they were probably earning about 30,000 a year, something like that, through footy, and then they were earning another 25, 30 through work and that, and making a bit of an earn on that. So it was probably like the Wayne Careys of the world who first, through Ricky Nixon and that, got a really substantial contract. And actually, probably before that would have been Dermy. So Dermy put himself out there initially, and he was almost congratulated for it. And the unfortunate part with Taylor Harris is that she's not. That's the sad thing for me. I think she's tried to test her place in the market, hasn't worked. I think she's going to have to come back to a 5-figure salary. That's just going to be the way it works. But is she continues to do it and others follow, I think it eventually will occur. I think she's gone way too hard with 150, but I think she shouldn't be derided for trying to test the marketplace because you know what? Everyone else does it.
Yep.
How far away do you think, obviously with more teams coming on in the next couple of years to the AFLW, how far away is the parity in terms of what men are getting paid to the women getting paid? Do you think
unfortunately, it's not going to happen for decades.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen for decades, and it's just because of the money, the amount of money that's in the game.
Yep.
Until such time you see the female sport getting TV rights, for instance, that may be worth $600 million a year, or all those sorts of things have to fall into play. It's just, it's like anything that can you. It's going to take time. It's like when you start a new business. You lose money the first 3 or 4 years before you start getting even, and then start making profits and revenues after that. So they're going to have to be patient. Unfortunately, they're going to have to be patient, but I don't agree with the criticism that Harris has received at all.
Yep. Yeah, I think I don't really think it was just her call either. I think she's been wrongly advised on the number, to be honest. And I think maybe 50 to 60 was probably the number and not 150 miles off. So, look, there's no doubt they need to bridge the gap a little bit, but it's definitely not going to be a non-par scenario like it is with, say, the tennis or something like that, where they're now competing for even dollars. It's about a pool, unfortunately, a pool of girls that are playing now. And the great part about the AFLW game now is we're starting to see girls that have coming up and played local level footy and then coming up into the senior kind of ranks of AFLW. And it's not so much just athletes coming in and playing the game, and where hasn't been their chosen sport. So the game's definitely getting better. It'll be interesting to see. When do the Bombers come in? Have they listed one yet? Are they in the next couple of years?
They're not going to let us in till 2020.
Hang on, mate.
They're not going to let us in until about...
Can we just talk through that?
2023.
We officially had our first streaker on the show, so
yeah,
good to see.
Yeah,
Toby?
Yeah, 2023.
Yeah, talk about a chip off the old block there.
Best thing about that, though, mate, he actually walked through and just gave us the quick look at to say, what are we doing in his kitchen as opposed to what's he doing in our podcast?
Yeah, I know.
It was nice of him to stay and wash the dishes too, mate.
Yeah, look, do all these sort of things. Get ready for the camera to go off in a sec too. At best, 2023.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Left us again. Beautiful.
On call, it falls off. What else, Cuz, before we wrap up?
Nothing else. Oh, the jeweler.
Yeah, we've got a jeweler update.
Great friend of the show. Jeweler update. Had his latest equine investment. Ran at Mildura today. Came second.
Right.
So he rang me yesterday. I spoke to him last night after the footy. I said, how's it going to go? And he goes, no good. So I came second and paid about $4. I said, thanks so much to ring him today. Any danger? He goes, you would have told everybody about it. So I'll tell you when it's next running. So it's had its first start and very impressed. So
right.
Millions coming our way, hopefully.
Yeah, look out. Millions of cost.
Look out.
Cost. All you get's millions of invoices, I think, sadly.
So tell me, do you think you had that before? If you can pull it up again for me, can you see, and it's probably a good one to get Lovey if he comes back on before we wrap up, can you see the 8 changing?
Yeah, good question. All right, let's have a look at who's in the top. Let's have a look at the top 8 for a second. Who first of all, who goes out? For me, I actually think the Eagles will drop out.
Yeah, look, and not to do with last night's result at all, but I think they're the ones that they still seem very susceptible away from home. They're great at home. Obviously, last night, a couple of injuries early on.
The question, though, with the Eagles is they win at home, they get in. That's pretty much how it's going to be. They win enough at home, and that's the big advantage of them versus Sydney or Brisbane, where you actually a chance to beat them up there. Most teams lose, and that's why it was such a big win for the Bombers. Lovey, we were just touching on the top 8 and whether we believe that top 8's going to change, and if is, who drops, who goes out. And it's hard to say with current form, but where do you think it's going to sit at the moment? Say let's go with the next 4 rounds. Who drops out in the next 4 rounds?
Oh, look, I think the Eagles are susceptible. I think if Essendon can expose them at home, then they're going to be very touchable for the next month or so. And if they're using the excuse that Tim Kelly went down, Yo's not fit, well, geez, I'm really not sure that you've got a lot to work with if you're sort of hanging on that as your excuses for not winning last night. Now, if you're up to 29 points, I don't care who you are, you win the game. You win that game of football no matter what.
So they go out, mate. Who do you think comes in?
Anyone else goes out? What, just on them? I think.
I still think Sydney.
Yeah.
I still think Sydney. They're a very young team still. I think there's still a chance of possibly dropping out. If not, they'll finish in that bottom half of the top 8. But they're the 2 susceptible ones. Coming in.
Let's go with who's sitting there. Do you boys believe, as Bombers boys, the Bombers coming up?
Crazy enough, I remember saying that Fremantle would make the 8 at the start of the year, and I saw enough tonight against Port. I still think that they can sneak in. They've got a lot of games coming up in WA as well.
Yep.
So I think Freo can still sneak in there. Carlton are a massive disappointment. They are, and it's great to see, but if I'm a Carlton supporter, I'd be just getting sick and tired of all the promises being made.
Yeah, it'd be pretty disappointing.
Just how much of that game today, Lovey?
Yeah, I saw it all.
Look, and I'm not. They've played a lot more AFL than what I'll ever play, but I was amazed by some of their just insipid efforts today. Where, like, I know Sydney love the contested footy, and blokes like Parker and Kendi are great players, but there was 3 or 4 stages in the game just for minutes where it's like bruise-free football. Sydney just waltzed through contests like amazingly.
I'll go even better than this, Cuz. You look at and Channel 7 pointed up today. You go through the list of players that were aged 23 to 28 in that team.
I saw that, yeah.
I'm sorry, but whoever's been rating this list and they should be jumping up into the A, it's completely overrated. Completely overrated. They stuffed up. They stuffed up their trades and drafts from 4 years ago through. Thanks, Sauce. And I really think that I just don't think they're going to penetrate the top half of the ladder anytime soon with that list they've got still.
There's a call to SEN. There's a call to SEN during the week who said driving home from work the other night, and he was talking on the Andy and Bob show, and he rang up and obviously, as you know, Andy Marr's a Carlton tragic or whatever, but he rang up and said the same words you said. He goes, "I want to thank Stephen Silvani for the situation we're now in."
Yeah. 100%.
No disrespect to the blokes who are playing there. They're obviously AFL footballers and whatever, but guys who have just become list cloggers in a way.
Dow, Plowman, those sort of players.
And Plowman came with a fair bit of reputation and cost them a fair bit of money too.
Yeah. Well, you're paying $1.5 million for 2 halfback flankers per year. Work that one out.
Yeah.
And I'm not. And not because he left us, but I don't care. I'm not convinced about Sards playing the role that he wants to be playing there either.
Yeah, well, stiff shit. You've walked out on 2 clubs because you weren't happy.
Yeah.
You're going to have to suck it up here now. If not, mate, you're probably going to be playing VFL in 3 years' time if you're not careful.
Yeah, that's
clubs won't touch him.
Because
all he is just a running halfback flanker. They're dimes a dozen. Carlton paid massive overs for him. Not so much Zach Williams. I think Williams has got a bit in him because he can go through the midfield.
But Sard can't.
His reputation was because he was a halfback flanker, an attacking halfbacker, and you're paying 1.5, 1.6 in the cap for both of them combined. Yeah, I'll find that hilarious.
Yeah.
The only other team, I'd like to think Essendon can jump in, but I've said at the start of the show, well, when I started on the show, that Essendon, I still don't think we'll make the 8. I almost think the 8's set, apart from I still reckon Freo can jump in there. Any other team, they're done. St Kilda's percentage will keep them out. I just don't believe there's another team that can go in. I think the 8's almost set.
On the topic of disappointments, what about them?
Again, no one else to blame but themselves.
Oh, exactly right. They went out and targeted certain players because they were in that window supposedly, and I think the window's slammed shut.
Yeah, look, they don't always work. There's no doubt. We at Melbourne, we recruited a few high profiles that just didn't happen and didn't work for us. But look, Hanbury, they just haven't been able to get him on the track. So he was an epic fail.
Look, Hanbury was quality footballer, but he's done. He's actually cooked.
Yep.
And that's a mate of mine. I won't say too much, but they were giving that mail to St Kilda. That he's happy to come, but you'll get 50% of the year for how many years you get him for. And they took him on. That's what I mean. But they took him on that proviso that he said
they would have taken that.
Yeah, but they haven't got that, as you said, Lovey. Haven't got that. What's he played? Would he have played 5 games in 3 years?
No, he played a lot of games last year. I mean, when he's playing, they're a very good football team.
Yep.
And he played some good footy last year. But he hasn't been playing. It coincides with him not playing.
Gresham's been a massive loss. Then you got the big fella, the big ruckman, just hasn't worked out.
Marshall. McKernan.
Yeah, there's a couple there.
The fact, and no disrespect, again, more AFL football than I've ever played, but the fact they're playing Sean McKernan, they're in a bit of trouble. But
the fact is, he wouldn't be playing. He wouldn't be playing if Marshall was fit. Marshall was Paddy Ryder and missed most of the year.
Who's got the better king?
Huh?
Who's got the better king?
St Kilda,
Gold
easy.
Coast. What's that?
St Kilda, easy.
Oh, yeah, I think the other one myself.
Big call on easy.
St Kilda,
they're closer. They're closer than you give
on the Gold Coast. Did you see some of his efforts? Did you see some of his efforts in the most recent game?
What, against the VFL Hawthorn? Yeah, great. Well done.
No, not the Gold Coast one, the St Kilda one.
King versus Geelong. The only thing he didn't do right was kick straight. He kicked straight. He wins the game off his own boot.
Yep.
Now find me another 20-year-old at 6'8" that can do that. You're going back to Paul Salmon. So
his
I'm
efforts
sorry.
against
You're going to be, huh?
His efforts against what many consider to be the least or the worst side in the comp, North, at times were insipid at best.
Well, that's just crap.
What I saw, that's just my opinion. It doesn't make it right. That's my opinion.
Man, that's just crap. Because the guy is still out there. He's clunking marks. People forget he still took over 10 marks for the game. He's taken over 10 marks a game in the most difficult spot in the ground. And yet people want to chastise him and give him shit for it. I tell you what, bring him in Essendon. I don't care if he kicks 4 goals 8. He'll win us games of footy.
Yep.
He's miles ahead of the Gold Coast King. Gold Coast
Let's
King
finish off.
Hasn't proved himself yet.
Let's finish off with the most disappointing. The most disappointing you've seen so far.
Team. I think Collingwood. Yep. And I actually don't think – I know they've had injuries. I understand that. But so have Essendon, so have Richmond, so have all – Melbourne's got a couple of prime movers out vying in others. I honestly don't think – and I'm not blaming Buckley, but I think he's lost the connection to the players. That's the impression I get. If you watch last night's game, Essendon West Coast, I know they won, but the way that the Essendon players responded to Rutten when he came out, you look when Goodwin goes out to Melbourne, other teams, Port with Ken Hinkley, it's like he's part of them. With Buckley now, I think he's lost that connect. Is that Do you agree with that? Disagree?
No.
I don't think he's lost them, to be honest. I think he's got them. It's whether he's got all of them. That's the question for me. I think he's got top 5 to 8 players are always going to be big Buckley fans.
Yeah.
It's that fringe kind of player that can't get that can't stay in this team and's in and out. They're probably dropping off Buckley, and it's your bottom 8 players that are really hurting Collingwood, I reckon, at the moment.
But how many more years is the 2 you said, Lovey? Great players, great servants of the game, great servants of the club. How many years, honestly, have Pendles and Sidebottom got left in them?
Pendles plays out next year, and you trade out Sidebottom this year.
Oh, that's what I reckon. I reckon Sidebottom. I watched him in the Anzac Day game. He used to always kill us with his smarts, with his efforts around the ball. He looked like a bloke who the game had caught up with him in a big way.
Yep.
Collingwood's demise, I agree, falls on Buckley, but for a completely different reason. And it's because of the way he's decided, I'm protecting my own job. I'm going to try and minimise the damage that I know would otherwise be inflicted on the team and the result. And I'm coaching so defensively that I've now I've almost bored my own supporters to death. I've bored my club to death. I'm boring the game to death. I just want to make sure I lose by a few goals and not 8, trying to do something different every week. He just, if he had kept to what he was doing in round 1 right now, I actually still think he might have even won yesterday, or he might have lost by 10 goals. What's he got to lose from here? They're not going to play finals. The only thing they're going to do is improve their draft pick position. Play the way that your boys want to play. If you're talking about a disconnect to the group, that's probably it. The game plan. It's got nothing to do with culture. It's just the game plan.
No, I'm not talking from a culture. I just mean like in terms of his message to what he wants them to do, and then them putting it in place. I'm not saying they don't respect him. I just think.
I would suggest they're putting in 100% what he's asking them to do, and that's the result. They're listening to him.
Does he see the year out? And if he does see the year out, is he there next year?
He will sign on for 2 more years. There's my tip. He'll sign on for 2 years. It'll be done. Well, they've got bigger issues up at the board level.
I don't think there's anybody else. Not that I'm saying.
Wrong. I think Chris Scott would be coaxed over. I agree with that story going around. I think Chrissy Scott, if you gave him the right coin, he'd flip over. There's a few out there.
Yeah, I think
you don't have to.
I think Johnny Barker's out there. Carousella's out there. There's a few out there, mate, that I reckon.
You don't have to look at the assistants at each club. Yep. You look at the really good rated assistants at each club, and they jump at the Collingwood gig, not a problem. But I think Bucks would serve. I think Bucks will get re-signed for 2 years after all this because the board's in a bigger mess than what he is.
Well, that's it. That was my next question. What's happening with that? Do you think?
Oh, who cares?
Do you think anything will come of that, or it's all smoke and mirrors? Look, as non-Collingwood supporters, we're all happy about it, but I think that's got to have an effect on what's going on field in some way, shape, and form.
Oh, mate. Well, I'll tell you what. If Tottenham can re-sign Pochettino again 2 years after sacking him, you might as well get Eddie Maguire back in too.
Let's talk about the Premier League, Lovey.
No.
Where'd they finish, Tottenham?
Get stuffed.
Oh, so that would be below West Ham, would it?
Mate, you finished 1 year above us in your whole lifetime. And
as good as your last result, Alan?
Everywhere, are you?
Yeah, he's got a story.
Forever blowing bubbles.
You're an idiot.
All right, boys, we've chatted for an hour or an hour and 15. So let's get off. And tomorrow night we're going again.
Stella, great man.
With Ryan Sterling, where it all began, show number 1. So it'd be great to have Ryan on. Sadly, we didn't get to one of his gigs because it got cancelled because of the COVID lockdown, but hopefully it's on again, and he's been good enough to join us with his time. So look forward to tomorrow night. Boys, let's wrap it up. See you tomorrow.
See you,